Dustin Poirier versus Max Holloway at UFC 318 is going to be an absolute banger. The BMF belt is on the line. Holloway's looking for redemption after losing to Poirier twice, and Poirier wants to make it 3-0 and walk off into the sunset with a win. So who's going to take it in this epic showdown? Let's break it down and find out. Dustin Poirier and Max Holloway are two of MMA's most beloved fighters, and as their third and final clash comes close, much attention is on their epic 2019 battle for the interim lightweight title, a 5-round war that showcased their primes. However, their very first fight back in 2012 at UFC 143 tells an equally important story of their growth and stylistic foundations. First fight. At the time, Poirier was a rising prospect, and Holloway was just a 20-year-old kid, fast-tracked into the big leagues with a 3-0 record. There was no trash talk, no spotlight, just two young fighters trying to climb the ranks. From the opening bell, both men aimed to control the center of the octagon, revealing their natural inclination towards pressure fighting. Holloway came out with push kicks and flying knees, trying to overwhelm Poirier, but these flashy techniques often left him exposed and off balance, giving Poirier room to reset and take control. Poirier's style revolved around his signature shifting combinations and stance-switching attacks. He used these to gain angles and chop at Holloway's legs. The open stance dynamic made jabbing difficult, especially for Holloway, who relies heavily on his jab. Poirier capitalized by controlling the lead hand and landing clean shots. Though Holloway did respond with some well-timed counters, he lacked the experience and physical maturity to sustain effective offense. The ground game told the rest of the story. Poirier took Holloway down and unleashed relentless submission chains, keeping Holloway on defense until he was finally forced to tap. It was a dominant performance that earned Poirier a submission win and handed Holloway his first professional loss. While this fight didn't have the drama or stakes of their later rematch, it revealed the raw versions of the fighters they would become. Holloway would evolve into a featherweight king, and Poirier into one of the most respected lightweights in MMA, and both would fight again for the interim lightweight title in 2019. Second fight. The second fight was something else, and it went 5 rounds, with Poirier winning 4 of them. It was a competitive war where Poirier showed the world just how sharp his boxing had become, and how underrated his ability to mix in takedowns and clinch control could be. Holloway had his moments, and he even rocked Poirier once, but it wasn't enough. The power difference was clear, and Poirier landed the cleaner, heavier shots, while also mixing in grappling to keep Holloway honest. But here's where things get tricky. That version of Holloway was coming up from featherweight for the first time. He didn't look like a lightweight. He looked like a featherweight who had eaten a heavy lunch. He hadn't bulked up properly. His frame wasn't filled in. His power didn't carry over. And honestly, he just didn't look physically prepared. He was skinny fat, lacked pop on his punches, and looked slower than usual. Build up to UFC 318. Fast forward to now. Holloway is 33, has more muscle, and is certainly heavier. At UFC 300, he did a better job of fitting into a lightweight frame, and we all saw what that version of Holloway did to Justin Gaethje. That Holloway was a lightweight. He looked bigger, stronger, faster, and laser-focused. He absolutely dismantled Gaethje with beautiful striking and fight IQ, and then brutally knocked him out in the dying seconds of their 5-round war. That was prime Holloway. And it's important to realize that that version is not the same guy who fought Poirier in 2019. On the flip side, Poirier is now 36. He was in his absolute prime when he fought Holloway the second time. Since then, he's had brutal fights with Conor McGregor, Charles Oliveira, Michael Chandler, and most recently, he got choked out by Islam Makhachev. Poirier is still sharp, still skilled, but he's absorbed a ton of damage in the last 6 years. He's been through wars and back. You can see the wear and tear, especially in his movement, his durability, and even his pace. His hips don't seem to be what they once were. He's taken real and career-altering damage. What makes this third fight so fascinating is that while Poirier may be slowing down, Holloway still has a lot of fire in his tank. The guy who looked outgunned in 2019 might be the one with the upper hand now. He's added muscle. He's used to the weight, and he seems to have taken that loss to heart in terms of physical preparation. That said, Holloway did just get knocked out cold for the first time in his career against Ilia Topuria in his most recent fight at UFC 308. and that will create a shadow of doubt in his mind now. We don't know how that's going to affect his chin. Is it gone now? Was it a fluke? Or did Topuria simply have that kind of freak power and speed that most lightweights don't bring to the table? These are the unknowns we have to wrestle with. Maybe Topuria is just a different breed because he most recently starched Oliveira to win the vacant lightweight title. That was Oliveira's first KO loss in 8 years, and Oliveira has been touched by the likes of Poirier and Gaethje, two of the hardest hitting lightweights. So we can chalk up Holloway's knockout to Topuria being special, not to Holloway's chin being gone. Poirier still hits hard. He's a master at finding the chin with short, tight punches in the pocket, and if Holloway's durability is compromised, it only takes one clean shot. But if Holloway is still the same iron-jawed savage we've known for a decade, I think he might take over this fight with his volume, pace, and ability to wear opponents down. It's also important to remember that Dustin Poirier has become noticeably more hittable in recent fights. His head movement, while still fundamentally sound, doesn't quite have the same sharpness or urgency it once did. The wear and tear of countless wars with elite-level fighters like Gaethje, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, and Conor McGregor has inevitably taken a toll. His pace, too, has dipped slightly. He's still dangerous in every exchange, still capable of exploding with violent flurries, but the sustained, relentless pace we saw in his prime isn't as consistent anymore. And that's where things start to look interesting for Max Holloway, because if there's one fighter who thrives when opponents start to fade, it's the blessed one. His cardio is still elite, his volume punching is unmatched, and now that he's fully adjusted to lightweight, he doesn't fade late like he once did when moving up prematurely. Holloway doesn't just survive in rounds 4 and 5, he often shines there. That's his world. That's where he pulls away, where his sharpness becomes overwhelming, and where his opponents start second-guessing every movement. What makes Holloway even more dangerous now is his evolution. He's not the same reckless volume machine who fought Poirier in 2019. That version of Max was still elite, but he often waded into the pocket unnecessarily, eating power shots in order to return fire. Nowadays, he's more patient, more calculated. He picks his moments. He manages range beautifully, mixing in feints and footwork to create opportunities without taking unnecessary damage. His performance against Gaethje is a perfect example that he fought smart, stayed disciplined, and still found that finishing shot when the opening came. So how do I see this going? Honestly, I'm leaning towards Holloway. I think he's finally grown into this division. I think he's had enough time to properly adapt to lightweight. He looks stronger, faster, and more calculated than ever. And I think Poirier, while still dangerous, might be on the downward slope of his career. It's not a dramatic fall off, but it's noticeable. MMA is all about patterns, momentum, and context, and right now all those factors are in play. Max Holloway at 33 looks better than ever. Poirier at 36 looks a little worn down, but chins, power, and timing change everything. So for now, I'm leaning towards Holloway. I think the trilogy will be epic. I think both guys will show up ready to go to war, and I think this time we might see Max finally get his hand raised and send Poirier into the sunset with utmost respect that a legend like him deserves. Are you still riding with Poirier, or do you think it's finally Max's time to get one back? Either way, this is going to be a fight for the ages. I can't wait. Who do you think will come out on top in the UFC 318 main event? Let me know your thoughts. If you liked the video, please subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.